Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the Stellar Phoenix, her eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing thousands of Dreadnought warships emerging from hyperspace. The experimental vessel, humanity's most closely guarded secret, represented their last hope against an enemy that had systematically destroyed every human colony in the outer systems. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Admiral Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. Initial count suggests over 300,000 vessels. His voice remained steady, though his hands trembled slightly as they moved across the holographic interface. Chen's jaw tightened. The Dreadnought Imperium had finally decided to commit their main fleet to Earth's destruction. Intelligence had warned this day would come, but seeing the sheer scale of the invasion force made her blood run cold. Dr. Patel, status of the quantum phase drive? Chen asked, turning to the brilliant physicist who had helped develop humanity's revolutionary technology. Arjun Patel looked up from his station, his dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of his displays. The QPD is stable, Admiral. All simulations indicate we can maintain full phase variance for up to 8 hours. He paused, adding, assuming the theoretical models hold up in actual combat conditions. The Stellar Phoenix represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a vessel capable of existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. While other ships relied on conventional weapons and shields, the Phoenix could phase between realities, making it nearly impossible to target. But they had never tested it against an enemy of this scale. Message from the Dreadnought flagship, announced Communications Officer Maya Wang. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Put them through. The imposing figure of Supreme Commander Vorthak appeared on the main screen, his scaled face and multiple eyes characteristic of the Dreadnought species. This is your only warning, humans. Surrender Earth now, and we will allow your species to survive as our servants. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force, she replied calmly. You've violated sovereign human space and attacked our colonies without provocation. We request your immediate withdrawal. Vorthak's secondary eyes blinked in what Chen recognized as amusement. You face the combined might of the Dreadnought Imperium. Your entire defense fleet consists of a single vessel. Even for humans, this display of arrogance is remarkable. Perhaps, Chen responded, but you might want to consider why we only sent one ship. She cut the transmission with a gesture and turned to her crew. Battle stations. Dr. Patel, initiate quantum phase drive. Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin targeting solutions. Officer Wang, relay final authorization codes from Earth Command. The bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for what could be humanity's final stand. The Stellar Phoenix might appear small compared to the massive Dreadnought dreadnoughts, but size wasn't everything. The aliens were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to change the rules of the game. QPD spinning up, Patil announced. Quantum field stabilizing. We're ready to make history, Admiral. One way or another. Chen took her command chair, watching as the enemy fleet moved into attack formation. They had trained for this moment, developed technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Now they would find out if it was enough. All hands, she broadcast throughout the ship. Remember your training. Remember Earth. Remember why we're here. She paused, looking at each member of her bridge crew. Let's show them what one human ship can do. The first wave of Dreadnought vessels opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space like artificial stars. But as their beams approached the Stellar Phoenix, reality itself seemed to blur around the human vessel. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the Dreadnought Imperium was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity's ingenuity. The massive barrage of Dreadnought weapons passed harmlessly through the space where the Stellar Phoenix had been, or perhaps still was. Dr. Patel's quantum phase drive had performed exactly as designed, leaving the human vessel existing in multiple states simultaneously. QPD holding stable at 87% efficiency, Patil reported, his fingers dancing across his console as he fine-tuned the revolutionary system. Phase variance is within acceptable parameters. Admiral Chen watched as confusion spread through the enemy fleet. The Drachnid's rigid military doctrine had never prepared them for a ship that could exist in quantum superposition. Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare to demonstrate our offensive capabilities. Targeting solutions ready. Admiral. Rodriguez confirmed. Phase-shifted torpedoes, armed and primed. The Stellar Phoenix's main weapons weren't conventional missiles or energy beams. Instead, they carried warheads that could inject quantum uncertainty into enemy vessels' structural integrity fields. The result was devastating. Ships would literally tear themselves apart as they tried to exist in multiple states of damage simultaneously. Supreme Commander Vorthak is hailing us again, Wang announced, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. On screen, Chen ordered, straightening in her command chair. The Drachnid commander's usually imperious expression had been replaced by one of barely concealed confusion. What sorcery is this? No ship can simply ignore our weapons. Not sorcery, Commander. Science. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Though I suppose to a species that stole most of its technology from conquered races, the difference might not be clear. Vorthak's scales darkened with rage. You dare mock the Imperium? All ships, concentrate fire. Use every weapon. They cannot dodge forever. The transmission cut off as thousands of Drachnid vessels began maneuvering into new attack formations. Their massive dreadnoughts moved with surprising grace, forming intricate geometric patterns designed to create overlapping fields of fire. They're attempting to saturate all possible coordinates with weapon fire, Rodriguez observed, studying his tactical display. Classic Drachnid overwhelming force doctrine. Too bad they're still thinking in conventional three-dimensional terms, Patel muttered, making minute adjustments to the QPD. Admiral, I believe it's time to show them why that won't work. Chen nodded. Agreed. Mr. Rodriguez, target their command ships. Let's introduce some chaos into their rigid formation. Phase-shifted torpedoes launching now, Rodriguez announced. The Stellar Phoenix released a spread of seemingly ordinary missiles. But as they approached their targets, they began to shift and blur, splitting into multiple quantum states just like their mothership. The Drachnid point defense systems fired frantically, but their targeting computers couldn't lock onto weapons that existed in multiple places simultaneously. The first torpedo struck a Drachnid command dreadnought. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive vessel began to shimmer, its hull appearing to exist in multiple states at once, intact, damaged, and destroyed all simultaneously. The ship's quantum structure collapsed in on itself, creating a cascade effect that spread to nearby vessels. First target eliminated, Rodriguez reported calmly. Quantum cascade affecting 17 adjacent vessels. 23, 31, and counting. On the main screen, they watched as the carefully ordered Drachnid formation began to break apart. Ships that had been flying in perfect unison now scattered in confusion as their commanders tried to understand what they were facing. They're launching fighters, Wang reported. Hundreds of thousands of them. Chen studied the tactical display. The Drachnids were responding to an unprecedented threat, the only way they knew how, with overwhelming numbers. But quantity had a quality all its own, and even the quantum phase drive had its limits. Dr. Patel, can we extend our quantum field to affect incoming fighters? The physicist's hands flew across his console as he ran calculations. Yes, but it will put additional strain on the QPD. We might have to reduce our phase variance to compensate. Do it, Chen ordered. Mr. Rodriguez, prepare defensive pattern alpha. Let's show them what happens when they try to swarm a ship that exists in multiple realities at once. As the wave of Drachnid fighters approached, the Stellar Phoenix's quantum field expanded. The small craft began to disappear as they entered the field, their pilots' brains unable to process the contradictory sensor data of a target that both was and wasn't there. Fighter squadron leaders are breaking off their attack, Wang announced. They're requesting new orders from their command. Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Dreadnoughts were learning that their numerical superiority meant nothing against human ingenuity. But she knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when they stopped relying on their standard tactics and started getting creative. Status of the quantum phase drive, she asked. Holding at 82% efficiency, Paddle replied. We can maintain this level of operation for approximately 6 more hours. Chen nodded grimly. 6 hours to defeat the largest alien fleet humanity had ever faced. 6 hours to prove that humanity's place in the galaxy couldn't be determined by brute force alone. Send word to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them Phase 1 is successful. We're proceeding with Phase 2. She turned to her crew, seeing the determination in their eyes. Let's show the Dreadnoughts why they should have studied human history more carefully. We've always been at our most dangerous when we're cornered. The Dreadnought fleet's formation had transformed from ordered geometric patterns into a chaotic swarm. After losing over 50,000 ships to the Stellar Phoenix's quantum weapons, Supreme Commander Vorthak had abandoned conventional tactics. Now his vessels moved in random, unpredictable patterns, making it harder for Rodriguez to target specific command ships. They're learning, Chen observed, watching the tactical display. Breaking up their formation reduces the cascade effect of our quantum torpedoes. Admiral, Wang called out, her voice tense. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from their rear lines. They're linking their ships together somehow. Dr. Patel looked up from his console, his eyes widening. They're creating a quantum entanglement network, primitive compared to our technology, but with enough ships. He trailed off, fingers flying across his display. This could be problematic. Before Chen could respond, the Stellar Phoenix shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every station as dozens of Dreadnought weapons found their mark simultaneously. Direct hits, Rodriguez reported. They used the entangled network to coordinate their firing solutions across multiple quantum states. QPD efficiency dropping, Patil announced, his voice steady despite the emergency, down to 74%. The entanglement network is allowing them to predict our phase variances. Chen gripped her command chair as another volley rocked the ship. The Dreadnoughts had proved more adaptable than expected, using their vast numbers to compensate for their technological disadvantage. Options. I have an idea, Paddle said, already making adjustments to the quantum phase drive. Their entanglement network relies on quantum predictability. But what if we deliberately destabilize our own quantum field? That sounds dangerous, Wang commented, stabilizing her communications array after another near miss. It is, Patil admitted. We'd be introducing controlled chaos into our phase variants. It would make us harder to predict, but it would also reduce our effective combat time. The QPD wasn't designed to operate under these conditions. Chen watched as more Dreadnought ships joined the entanglement network, their combined firepower becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. They were running out of options. How much would it reduce our operating time? From 6 hours to maybe 3, Paddle replied. But without it, we might not last another 30 minutes. Another barrage struck the Phoenix, this time breaching one of the auxiliary power conduits. Damage control reports began flooding in from all decks. Do it, Chen ordered. Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare to switch to fractal attack pattern Delta. If we're going to fight chaos with chaos, let's make it count. As Paddle initiated the quantum field destabilization, the space around the Stellar Phoenix began to ripple in strange ways. The ship's quantum signature became erratic, splitting into even more unpredictable states than before. Quantum field destabilization complete, Patil announced. We're now operating in what I like to call controlled uncertainty. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Show me what it can do, Doctor. Rodriguez didn't need to be told twice. He launched a spread of quantum torpedoes, each one now affected by the destabilized field. Instead of creating predictable cascade effects, the weapons carved random paths through space-time itself. The results exceeded even Patel's expectations. The Drachnid Entanglement Network, designed to predict and counter regular quantum phase variations, couldn't handle the intentionally chaotic patterns. Ships began disappearing in fractals, each destruction creating unpredictable ripples through the quantum field. Their network is collapsing, Wang reported, monitoring the enemy communications. They can't maintain quantum coherence across their fleet. But victory had come at a cost. The Stellar Phoenix's power systems were straining under the unusual conditions, and warning indicators showed multiple systems approaching critical levels. "Admiral," Patel called out, his voice more urgent than before. "The quantum chaos is affecting our own systems more than anticipated. We're seeing microfractures in the ship's quantum structure. Can we contain it?" "Yes, but we'll need to reduce our offensive operations. We can maintain this state for maybe 2 hours instead of 3. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. They had destroyed nearly a third of the Drachnid fleet, but over 200,000 enemy ships remained. More importantly, she could see Vorthak's forces regrouping again, no doubt preparing another innovation. "Message from Earth Command," Wang announced. "They're detecting unusual gravitational disturbances throughout the system. The quantum chaos is having some kind of effect on local spacetime." Chen turned to Patel. Could the Drachnids use that to their advantage? The physicist's expression was troubled. If they're clever enough, yes. They might try to use the gravitational distortions to create a containment field. Trap us in a single quantum state. Then we need to end this before they get the chance, Chen decided. "All hands prepare for maximum effort. We're going to push this technology to its absolute limit." As her crew acknowledged the order, Chen studied the massive enemy fleet. The Drachnids had proven themselves worthy opponents, adapting to face humanity's greatest technological achievement. But they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the quantum phase drive, or even the Stellar Phoenix itself. It was their willingness to risk everything when backed into a corner. The fabric of space itself seemed to warp around the Stellar Phoenix as the ship pushed its quantum phase drive beyond its design limits. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the vessel as multiple systems approached critical failure. "Gravitational distortions increasing," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with concentration. "The Drachnids are using their remaining ships to create some kind of spatial net." Dr. Patel's hands flew across his console, making constant adjustments to keep the quantum field stable. "They're trying to use the gravitational anomalies we created against us. Clever. If they can establish a strong enough containment field, they might be able to force us into a single quantum state." Admiral Chen watched as the enemy fleet executed its new strategy. The remaining Drachnid ships had arranged themselves in a complex three-dimensional pattern, each vessel generating powerful gravitational fields that interacted with the quantum chaos surrounding the Phoenix. "How long until they complete the containment field?" Chen asked. "At their current rate of deployment, 15 minutes, Patel replied. "Maybe less if they're willing to sacrifice more ships to speed up the process." Another barrage of enemy fire struck the Phoenix, this time finding its mark more frequently as the gravitational distortions began limiting their quantum shifting ability. Damage reports flooded in from multiple decks. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, Wang announced, routing emergency teams to the affected areas. "Medical bay reports casualties." Chen's jaw tightened. They had known this mission would likely be one way, but every crew member lost hit or hard. "Dr. Patel, what happens if they succeed in trapping us in a single quantum state?" "Best case, we lose our tactical advantage and become a normal ship facing over 200,000 enemy vessels," Patel said grimly. "Worst case, the forced quantum collapse tears the Phoenix apart at the subatomic level." "What about using the quantum torpedoes to disrupt their gravitational net?" Rodriguez suggested, already calculating firing solutions. Patel shook his head. "The torpedoes would be affected by the same gravitational forces. They might not reach their targets, and even if they did, the cascade effect would be minimal in these conditions." Chen studied the tactical display, Watching as the Dreadnought ships tightened their net, they had adapted faster than anyone had expected, turning humanity's own technological innovation into a potential trap. But there was something about their formation that caught her attention. "Doctor," she said slowly, "you said forcing us into a single quantum state would cause a collapse at the subatomic level." "Yes," Patel confirmed. "The energy release would be catastrophic." "What if we did it voluntarily?" "Their network is collapsing," Wang reported, monitoring the enemy communications. "They can't maintain quantum coherence across their fleet." But victory had come at a cost. The Stellar Phoenix's power systems were straining under the unusual conditions, and warning indicators showed multiple systems approaching critical levels. "Admiral," Patel called out, his voice more urgent than before. "The quantum chaos is affecting our own systems more than anticipated. We're seeing microfractures in the ship's quantum structure. Can we contain it?" "Yes, but we'll need to reduce our offensive operations. We can maintain this state for maybe 2 hours instead of 3. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. They had destroyed nearly a third of the Dreadnought fleet, but over 200,000 enemy ships remained. More importantly, she could see Vorthak's forces regrouping again, no doubt preparing another innovation. "Message from Earth Command," Wang announced. "They're detecting unusual gravitational disturbances throughout the system. The quantum chaos is having some kind of effect on local spacetime." Chen turned to Patel. Could the Dreadnoughts use that to their advantage? The physicist's expression was troubled. "If they're clever enough, yes. They might try to use the gravitational distortions to create a containment field, trap us in a single quantum state. Then we need to end this before they get the chance." Chen decided. "All hands, prepare for maximum effort. We're going to push this technology to its absolute limit." As her crew acknowledged the order, Chen studied the massive enemy fleet. The Dreadnoughts had proven themselves worthy opponents, adapting to face humanity's greatest technological achievement. But they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the quantum phase drive, or even the Stellar Phoenix itself. It was their willingness to risk everything when backed into a corner. The fabric of space itself seemed to warp around the Stellar Phoenix as the ship pushed its quantum phase drive beyond its design limits. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the vessel as multiple systems approached critical failure. "Gravitational distortions increasing," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with concentration. "The Dreadnoughts are using their remaining ships to create some kind of spatial net." Dr. Patel's hands flew across his console, making constant adjustments to keep the quantum field stable. "They're trying to use the gravitational anomalies we created against us. Clever. If they can establish a strong enough containment field, they might be able to force us into a single quantum state." Admiral Chen watched as the enemy fleet executed its new strategy. The remaining Dreadnought ships had arranged themselves in a complex three-dimensional pattern, each vessel generating powerful gravitational fields that interacted with the quantum chaos surrounding the Phoenix. "How long until they complete the containment field?" Chen asked. "At their current rate of deployment, 15 minutes, Patel replied. "Maybe less if they're willing to sacrifice more ships to speed up the process." Another barrage of enemy fire struck the Phoenix, this time finding its mark more frequently as the gravitational distortions began limiting their quantum shifting ability. Damage reports flooded in from multiple decks. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, Wang announced, routing emergency teams to the affected areas. Medical bay reports casualties. Chen's jaw tightened. They had known this mission would likely be one way, but every crew member lost hit her hard. "Dr. Patel, what happens if they succeed in trapping us in a single quantum state?" "Best case, we lose our tactical advantage and become a normal ship facing over 200,000 enemy vessels," Patel said grimly. "Worst case, the forced quantum collapse tears the Phoenix apart at the subatomic level." "What about using the quantum torpedoes to disrupt their gravitational net?" Rodriguez suggested, already calculating firing solutions. Patel shook his head. The torpedoes would be affected by the same gravitational forces. They might not reach their targets, and even if they did, the cascade effect would be minimal in these conditions. Chen studied the tactical display, watching as the Dreadnought ships tightened their net. They had adapted faster than anyone had expected, turning humanity's own technological innovation into a potential trap. But there was something about their formation that caught her attention. "Doctor," she said slowly, "you said forcing us into a single quantum state would cause a collapse at the subatomic level." "Yes," Patel confirmed. "The energy release would be catastrophic." "What if we did it voluntarily?" The physicist's eyes widened as he understood her implication. "You want to intentionally collapse our quantum field?" "Admiral, the release of energy would destroy everything within a massive radius, including their containment network." Chen nodded. "Could we trigger it in a controlled way? Direct the energy release?" Patel's fingers danced across his console, running simulations. "Theoretically, yes. We could use the gravitational distortions they've created to channel most of the energy outward. But," he hesitated, "we would need to be at the center of the collapse. There would be no way to survive it." A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. Chen looked at each member of her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "How many ships would it take out?" Rodriguez asked quietly. "Given their current formation and the projected energy release." Patel consulted his calculations. "At least 70% of their remaining forces. Maybe more if the quantum cascade effect amplifies the explosion." Another impact rocked the ship as the Dreadnought containment field grew stronger. Warning indicators showed the quantum phase drive was beginning to destabilize on its own. "We're losing quantum coherence," Patel warned. "If we're going to do this, it needs to be soon." Chen opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the Admiral. In 5 minutes, we will initiate a controlled quantum collapse. It has been my highest honor to serve with each of you." She paused, looking at her bridge crew. "We knew this might be a one-way mission when we volunteered. Now we make it count." The response was immediate. Acknowledgments and determined affirmatives flooded in from every department. There was no fear in their voices, only resolve. "Send word to Earth Command," Chen ordered Wang. "Tell them to prepare for Operation Sunburst. They'll know what it means." As Wang transmitted the message, Chen turned to Patel. "Doctor, begin the collapse sequence. Lieutenant Rodriguez, lock our position at the center of their containment field. Let's make sure this hits them where it hurts most." The Stellar Phoenix's quantum field began to pulse with new energy as Patel initiated the collapse sequence. Outside, the Dreadnought fleet continued to tighten their trap, unaware that they were helping to create the perfect conditions for their own destruction. Supreme Commander Vorthak's voice came over the comm one final time, heavy with triumph. "Your ship is trapped, human. Surrender now, and we may yet show mercy." Chen's response was calm and clear. "You should have studied human history more carefully, Commander. We don't surrender." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "All hands, brace for quantum collapse. Let's show them how humans face impossible odds." The space around the Stellar Phoenix began to glow with impossible colors as the quantum field started its final devastating transformation. The quantum collapse of the Stellar Phoenix created an event that would be studied by scientists across the galaxy for centuries to come. As Dr. Patel's final calculations predicted, the ship's controlled destruction channeled the release of quantum energy through the Dreadnought fleet's own gravitational containment field, amplifying its devastating effects. The explosion began as a pinpoint of impossible light, a singular moment where multiple quantum states collapsed into one reality. Then, like a supernova of human determination, it expanded outward in a perfect sphere of destruction. Dreadnought ships caught in the blast didn't simply explode. They ceased to exist across all possible quantum states simultaneously. Supreme Commander Vorthak, watching from his flagship at the edge of the containment field, had just enough time to realize his mistake. His final transmission, intercepted by Earth's monitoring stations, contained only 4 words. What have they done? The quantum cascade rippled through space, following the patterns of the Dreadnoughts' own gravitational net. Ships that had worked together to trap the Phoenix now helped spread its final act of defiance. In less than 30 seconds, over 150,000 Dreadnought vessels vanished from existence. The remaining ships, those far enough from the epicenter to survive, found themselves in chaos. Their rigid command structure had been decimated, their carefully planned containment strategy turned into the instrument of their own destruction. The proud Dreadnought fleet, which had arrived expecting an easy victory, now fled in disarray. On Earth, the Defense Command Center erupted in a mixture of celebration and mourning. The stellar Phoenix and her crew had saved humanity, but at the ultimate price. Admiral Chen's final message was immediately classified as humanity's most guarded inspiration. Remember that victory doesn't always mean survival. Sometimes it means showing the galaxy that humanity will never bow to tyranny, no matter the cost. The battle's aftermath brought changes that no one had expected. The quantum collapse had left a permanent mark on local spacetime, creating what scientists would later call the Phoenix anomaly, a region where the laws of quantum physics behaved differently. It served as both a memorial to the ship's sacrifice and a warning to any who might threaten Earth in the future. The Dreadnought Imperium, for the first time in its 1,000-year history, sued for peace. Their military doctrine, based on overwhelming force and rigid hierarchy, had been shattered by a single human vessel. More importantly, their belief in their own superiority had been irreparably damaged. During the peace negotiations, a junior Dreadnought diplomat asked an Earth representative why humans were willing to sacrifice everything to win. The response was recorded in the official proceedings. Because we understand something you don't. That survival of the species sometimes requires individual sacrifice, and that true strength lies not in the size of your fleet, but in the conviction of your cause. The quantum phase dry technology that had made the Phoenix's victory possible was not lost with the ship. Dr. Patel, in his final moments, had transmitted a complete data set of the battle's effects on the QPD system. Earth's scientists now had a blueprint for improving the technology, making it safer and more stable for future vessels. But perhaps the most significant change came in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The species that many had dismissed as primitive upstarts had demonstrated not only technological innovation, but also an unshakable will to survive. Other civilizations began approaching Earth with caution and respect, recognizing that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. A memorial was established in orbit around Earth, at the exact coordinates where the stellar Phoenix had made its final stand. It consisted of a simple hologram showing the ship as it existed across multiple quantum states, eternally shifting between possibilities. The inscription, written in every known galactic language, read, "Here lies the stellar Phoenix and her crew, who taught the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology, but our unwavering spirit." Years later, when asked about the battle, a surviving Dreadnought officer would write in his memoirs, "We came expecting to find a primitive species clinging to their single world. Instead, we found warriors who had mastered the quantum realm itself, and who valued their principles above their own existence. The galaxy will never be the same after witnessing such determination." The legacy of the stellar Phoenix lived on in humanity's continued expansion into space. Every new ship built with quantum phase technology carried a small memorial to Chen and her crew. And in the academy where future officers trained, their story was taught not just as a tactical lesson, but as a testament to the heights humanity could reach when pushed to its limits. The battle had lasted less than 3 hours, but its effects would ripple through the galaxy for generations. Humanity had proven that it wasn't just another spacefaring species to be conquered or ignored. They were innovators, warriors, and above all, survivors who would sacrifice everything to protect their principles and their home. In the end, the stellar Phoenix had lived up to its namesake, burning itself to ash, to ensure humanity's future would rise stronger than ever.